Personally, I love downloadable horse armor and what it did for video games as a whole. 2 hours, 120 minutes, 7,200 seconds. That's how long that Gabe Newell and the team over at Valve will allow you to play a game before you can no longer get a refund on it. So, I want to see if that's enough time to actually get a good grasp of what the new Oblivion Remaster is all about, and see if I'd want to keep on playing it. I want to set my stall out really early here and say that I'm not playing this remaster with any form of rose-tinted glasses. I've never really played Oblivion, I've never really played any of the Elder Scrolls games, or Fallout, or any of the first-person adventure games that Bethesda have put out. So just know that I'm coming at this remaster with a fresh set of eyes. Firstly, it has to go without saying that Bethesda have really pushed the envelope of what a remaster can be considered as. Before this game, if you'd asked me what a remaster was, probably would have said some higher res textures, improved frame rates, little things that would smooth out the experience and bring it up to snuff with the most recent titles. But what Bethesda have done is they've basically remade this without saying they've remade it. There's new assets, new lighting engines, new lip sync engines, and the list goes on for what they've done for this game, and it's incredible to look at it now. The graphics alone don't make the game. How does it play? How does it feel? Does it feel like a 2006 game? Or does it feel like a game that's been brought out in 2025? You see, there's definitely some aspects of the game which haven't aged well. The uncanny valley with some of the character models, for example, and the facial expressions. However, visually, you cannot tell me that the graphics in this game aren't impressive. Now, the first thing that players will do is create their character, and you've got a wealth of options here. It's quite in-depth, not too much that it's overwhelming, but there is a lot to go through. I didn't spend too much of my time here because I knew I only had 2 hours, but if you have got the time to do so, you can create some concerning creations. And then the game starts, and I'll be honest, I felt as though that I was being chucked into a story about halfway through, because I didn't really understand what was going on. I wasn't certain if I needed to have played previous games to know what was happening. Maybe that's on me for not having knowledge of the Elder Scrolls franchise and how it all works. Are they all linked together, or is it more of a Final Fantasy deal where they just share the franchise name? Straight off the bat, the first thing that got me was the facial expressions in the conversations that you were having with NPCs in this game. It's weird. I know they've made a new lip sync engine for us as well, which works really well with some character models and not so well with others. Now, I'm not someone who hasn't played big open world adventure games before. I've completed Elden Ring multiple times and multiple different playthrough styles, but there is kind of a lack of explanation on certain features in this game, which really confused me. Some of the menus don't have explanations on what they're doing, items don't have explanations, even spells. I was told to cast Clairvoyance and I didn't know what it did. I kind of figured out after I'd cast it, but I looked through afterwards to try and figure out what each spell would do. I didn't know what it meant. Yes, it's an adventure game, you're supposed to figure things out for yourself, but explanations of some of the mechanics are kind of important, in my eyes anyway, so that you can get a full grasp of what you're going to do. I'm not saying the game should tell me what build I should run. However, if you're giving me spells, let me know the ins and outs of what they do and the impact, because I kind of felt like I was a little bit in the dark with that. But speaking of spells, the game does tell you about a shortcut system which you can use to prevent you from having to open up your journal every time to change them, which I really liked. I really liked the way that you could quick select different items or spells to help you in your adventure, and it really made that a lot more seamless. One thing I didn't like was the potion creation screen, because I was told to make a potion, but I didn't know what the effects that I was combining actually did anyway, let alone what the combined effect would be. It was really weird from that, and again, some more explanation would have been nice, just to have it there for the first one maybe, and then to let me go on my own way. Another thing that I really did like was the lockpicking like mini game, I guess. I know at the start they're quite easy to do and quite straightforward, but I can see that being a bit of a fun aspect later on, especially if you can improve that lockpicking skill. And speaking of skills improving, another thing I liked was just by walking around and jumping and sprinting, my athletic skill was going up. So it is nice to know that the more that you do certain things in game, such as run, jump, fight barehanded, fight with swords, fight with blunt weapons, the corresponding attributes do improve. The story was feeling a bit weird. I mean, Uriel saw me in a dream and then trusted me fully, and then he dies whilst essentially in my care, and no one blames me for it. Even at one point they thought that I could be one of the assassins, and now the Emperor's dead and I was there when it happened. Yeah, it confused me a little bit, and they wouldn't let me rob his body. What I did like was every time that you looted a corpse, the corpse lost the items that it had. So I found a sick robe, and yeah, I did leave a dead assassin in his pants, but I had a sick robe. It was then when I was fumbling around with the controls that I found a third person mode, which made exploring a lot easier because for me, I preferred to play games like this in a third person mode. A lock-on feature would have just been perfect to keep that game in third person and allow me to enjoy seeing my character and exploring the world. And as you reach the end of the sewers, you are then given the chance to make some last minute changes to your character's appearance or your class, which on that note, I will say that choosing my initial class was a little bit weird because I wasn't 100% on what all the options on the screen were. I eventually fumbled through and got to the right options that I wanted to pick, but yeah, a little bit more explanation would have gone a long way. Once you leave the sewer though, the game is gorgeous. There's no other way to say it. I was impressed beyond belief with what I saw. Now, yes, this game is not your brand new AAA made from the ground up game. Considering this is a remaster, it is insane with what Bethesda have created here. The game is beautiful. There is no two ways about that. Anyone who says otherwise is lying and is wrong. But, and it's a big but, I tried it in quality mode and my eyes hurt. I don't get travel sick, I don't get motion sickness, but my eyes actually started to hurt when I was moving around in quality mode. Put the motion blur on to try and smooth it out a little bit, and it just was not fun. If you are going to play this, I'd fully recommend playing it in performance mode. Motion blur on or off, up to you. Yeah, quality mode was not it. And it's upsetting because the game is designed by a studio that is owned by Microsoft now, and yet it still struggled on a Series X. It doesn't sit right with me, and it never will. But yeah, that hurt. Another thing I found really weird was that I could fast travel to places I hadn't been to yet. I was told I had to go to this one town or this one hamlet or whatever you want to call it, and I could just travel there from the map, but I hadn't been there yet. And it felt like I was cheating because in any other open world game that I've played, you can't travel somewhere unless you've already been there, because how does your character know where it is, type of thing. Like, it just felt wrong, so I didn't do it initially. I walked around, I did eventually find the Imperial City, and there are so many loading screens in this game. They only last for a second or two, but every door you open, every time you go into a new area, loading screen, loading screen, loading screen. There's so many ways that games mask this now and hide it that it feels wrong. It felt archaic. It didn't feel like a smooth experience, and especially because they were so short. If it was a longer loading screen, I'd kind of get it, but when they are less than 5 seconds, why haven't you found a way of masking that? And it really took me out of the experience every time, because those momentary drops mean that I'm not fully absorbed with what's going on in the game. But then things turned around and I found a horse with armor. I got given a horse by someone in a stable, and I don't know why. Kind of felt like the game had to give me it, but also it felt really weird because I didn't give any money for it. I didn't do any form of threatening or anything like that. I just said I wanted a horse, and they said, okay. Is it that easy to get a horse in real life? So then with my trusty steed, I was able to travel around the overworld a lot quicker. One thing which I did like was that there was a constant marker at the top of the screen showing you where you had to go for the quest that you were doing. And when I did do the fast travel, I did like that the horse came with you and was put in a stable outside, not just left out in the cold in a field. It was looked after, which is nice. And then I got to Kvatch, and if you've played this game before, you'll know it's not in the best of ways right now. And there was an Oblivion gate there, and it was hard. I don't know if I was severely underleveled or just bad at the game, but I felt as though I was missing out on a chunk of experience to be able to do this. I kind of felt as though I'd rushed ahead, even though I'd been following the story and following the quests and hadn't picked up anything else to do. I don't know if it was just me not understanding some of the mechanics of combat, but it kind of felt as though I'd been thrown in the deep end without a paddle. So after getting my butt handed to me multiple times, I decided I'm gonna go off and try and level up a little bit. The problem was I didn't know how to do that. The game hadn't shown me a way of gaining experience or telling me how the experience works in it. And I don't know if it's just modern games have spoiled us with things like that, but as someone who hasn't played Oblivion before, I can't help but notice that there was a glaring omission there. And again, if I'm just missing the point of Oblivion, I am sorry to all the diehard fans, but it was something that stuck with me. It felt as though the game was withholding information from me. It felt as though the way that I could improve wasn't being shown to me, and I had to figure it out. And I'm all for figuring out stuff in games, but telling me what I need to figure out is really, really helpful. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it's not until you get into these cities and these other towns and hamlets and start talking to other characters that you do actually realise how hilarious they are to look at. And I'm not being a bully here or being mean, but the way that some of the facial animations work, it's just awkward. Like, it's really weird how some of them look, and it's really hard to not chuckle. And I do know that that is a little bit of the charm of these games, and that's fine, but it is a little bit funny, you gotta admit. Now, I guess you know by the title of this video that I'm not going to continue to play this game, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. And what I mean by that is, if you're someone that has played Oblivion before, played Skyrim before, you're going to have an affinity towards these games, and I urge you to check it out, because the game is gorgeous to look at, and I'm sure if you're better at the game, you're going to have a really good time. But coming into this game with no nostalgia, no rose-tinted glasses, and a fresh set of eyes on it technically, it's just not done enough to keep me. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, there's no reason to not check it out, because it's part of that. The only huge concern was the fact it was 120 gigabytes in size. So no, I'm not going to keep on playing Oblivion. But if you want to relive the days of 2006 and 2007, where you were staying up late and adventuring across the world, slaying dragons and monsters, you should really check it out. Oh, and Bethesda, we've never really forgiven you for the horse armor incident.